You ever heard of this game called Monster Hunter? I heard it's pretty good, but from what I've seen on Twitter, it sounds like the absolute worst thing in the world and also a dead series, so I don't know. Regardless, there's a few frogs in this series, and I think they're all pretty neat. Let's talk about the little guys first. Starting with the littlest guy of all, the common frog. Since the first game of the series, released in 2004, frogs are used for one thing and one thing only, and that would be as bait for the funny fish. I really like him. Also, you can bait Gobble with him in 3 Ultimate, but like, I don't care about Gobble. He's such a nothing monster to me. Anyways, moving on, we'll take a quick look at the status toads. Now, you may be wondering why I'm talking about toads. Like, excuse me, Miss YouTuber lady, frogs is literally in the title and not toads. And you would be right, but also, it's my show. I can talk about whatever I want. Go fuck yourself. The status toads first appeared in Monster Hunter World, released in 2018. With the protrusions on their head and the overall roundness of them, these guys resembled the horned frog, or the Pac-Man frog. Consisting of sleep, para, poison, and blast, these guys were scattered all around each map. You would think because of that, they'd be pretty useful in battle, right? Not really, they kinda suck. They wouldn't really reach their true potential until the next game. They just felt kinda weak in World. But hey, you can at least catch them and put them in your room. Don't judge me. Speaking of the next game, Rise is when the status toads really started to shine. In that game, you could pick up all sorts of endemic life, and because of that, the toads became arguably the best item in the game. Like, oh yeah, sure, let me just get an easy sleep or paralysis or maybe even a free knockdown because Primordial Malzeno is moving maybe just a bit too much. They actually introduced another toad in the Sunbreak expansion called the Thorny Toad. Besides looking absolutely fucking silly, these guys were used to knock down monsters as well, with the use of their gastric acid. Ew! You would think these guys would also be pretty helpful, except you can't grab onto them, they work at random times, and it pisses me off. And do you know what also pisses me off in Rise? It's the fact that this little wah-wah baby Tetsucabra is in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this guy. I think he's adorable. It's just that why couldn't we also get the adult versions instead of just the child, which some people describe as Hojo's nutsack warmer. Oh my god. I guess we should talk about Tetsucabra, right? First seen in Monster Hunter 4, released in 2013, it wasn't until literally last year when I realized, oh yeah, this is a frog. To be fair, I was not a smart child. I mean, I made a video about silly things on Monster Hunter and didn't expect any consequences. Looking at its appearance, the red upper body combined with its blue legs, the Tetsucabra resembles that of the strawberry poison dart frog. These guys have a lot of color morphs, and looking at more pictures of them, the comparison between the two becomes way more obvious. Moving on from appearance, there's actually some pretty interesting stuff regarding its name. Its Japanese name is made up by the words Tetsu, Ganko, and Akuma. I have no idea where those last 2 words fit in. Akuma translating into devil probably explains the title Demon Frog, but like, I don't know, man. I think he's a little cutie. 4 Ultimate's localization director, Andrew Alfonso, wrote a ton of articles talking about the game's translation process and the inspirations for some of the new names, with Tetsu being a focus for one of them. There were a few proposed English names for it, one of them being Testaran. The Ran part actually comes from Ranidae, the scientific family name for true frogs, further proving that yes, this is a frog, I'm a fucking idiot. In both its English and Japanese name, and also another proposed name, Cabrado, the word Kabura is prevalent. Kabura is a type of roof tile used in a bunch of Japanese architecture, and you can kind of see it's pretty similar to the scales on Tetsu's back, which I think is pretty neat. Yeah, anyways, while coming up with translation names, Fujioka said fuck both of these names and just romanized the original. And now that brings us here. Appearance-wise, he's pretty neat, but what about the fight? Is that interesting? I mean, it could be worse. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve, like jumps, sumo stomps, or spitting this goo that drains your stamina, which is a little funny. My favorite move is when he just decks you in the jaw, like, yes, eat this jab, bitch. Its main gimmick, though, involves those tusks of his. They can use those to dig up rocks and limit your way of approaching it. It can also carry rocks inside of its mouth and just crush them right in front of of your face. And these rocks are big too. Like, you would need so much force to break rocks that size, much less even carry the fuckers. All in all, it's a pretty fun monster early game, but it does get overshadowed later on. Maybe its subspecies can help with that. This is Berserk Tetsucabra. You'll see this guy in G rank. I really like the design of this guy with those nice shades of green and yellow and this creepy glowing face. The face actually has some inspiration from the performance of Kabuki. I won't go too into it, but the main style that the face was inspired by is called Aragoto, or rough style. It's actually an abbreviation of the word Aramushagoto, which translates to wild warrior style. Usually actors who perform this style have this white face paint on with all of these red markings, which now that I think about it, and they go fucking crazy with all of these wild movements and speaking super exaggerated like, it's pretty sick. The channel Kabuki In-Depth goes over the style much better than I do and has summaries of some of the plays themselves. I put their channel in the description. It's a great channel educating people about Kabuki in general, and it helped me with my research. Anyways, when coming up with names, Fujioka actually wanted a name based on the style itself. They threw around names like Chambara Tetsucabra and Magmacabra before eventually settling on Berserk because, well, it was wild. Gameplay-wise, the main difference is that now these rocks can blow up. He can roll the rocks towards you or toss them around the area and they explode after a few seconds. He's like a trapper in a fighting game, and lucky for him, I'm really bad at fighting trappers. Moving on from that, let's take a look at Drill Tusk Tetsucabra. Drill Tusk was introduced in Generations, released in 2015, and was one of the deviant monsters in that game. And yes, I do know that deviants aren't actually subspecies, but rather variants, but I care about the classification of monsters just as much as I care about the Monster Hunter series in general. I don't. Visually, I think this guy is the coolest out of the three. And sure, it's mostly based off of the original, just made a bit edgier, but I am an edgy bitch. I love this thing. The blue spots being replaced by this indigo-ish, blackish color, this darker shade of red, its tusks being bigger and sharper now. Actually, looking at it a little closer, one of its tusks is larger than the other. There's asymmetrical design, it's fucking awesome! And its fight is also really fun, because it's a lot stronger now. The power it has with those rocks of his are crazy. It can swing them around and just launch you across the map. It can still dig up rocks, but now they're absurdly large. I'm talking like frontier levels of extra. They also have this one move where it pulls a DDD and just sits on you. My favorite move is when he just falls straight on his ass and does like half your health bar. Like, that's comedy right there. Overall, this is my favorite version of Tetsucabra. Like, I can't even think of anything that I don't like about him. And actually, wait, the armor kind of sucks. Visually, I should say. Like, the male armor is totally fine, but even the regular armor looks better than this. But, I mean, hey, it makes for a pretty good Gunlance set. Too bad I don't play Gunlance. Man, what a shitty way to end this segment. And that's Tetsucabra for you, plus all the other small guys. For being the first amphibian in the series, I'd say it made a great first impression and paved way for all the others we'd see later on. Things like a shark, a kappa, whatever the hell this is. You know, amphibians. I really liked seeing all the inspirations for this guy and helped me appreciate it even more than I did. Sure, it ain't no Hypnocatrice for me, but hey, I'd still say it's up there. With all of that said, I'll leave you with one final note. The way it looks when it dies is kind of, interesting.